Hello, everybody. We're the Large Blast Podcast, and we're here to kick ass and talk about Warhammer 40,000, and we're all out of ass. So let's get things going. I'm your host, Stoney, and I'm joined, as always, by Matt.
Hello, bang, 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 hammer, 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 screw, screw, screw.
And Welshie.
G'day, boys.
That was my impression of a Forge World.
That's right, because we're here today to talk to you about all things 40k, in particular Forge Worlds, and we like to get things kicked off with hobbies goings on, where we take a little look inside the host lives. And it's been a while, hasn't it, boys? I mean, we're on a bit of a weird time schedule at the moment, because obviously, Welshie, you're literally on the other side of the world at the moment, aren't you?
I very much am. I am currently speaking to you guys from Australia as we record this. I've exited Southeast Asia. I almost finished that Eldar Corsairs kill team. I did as much as I can with the paint supplies that I've got, so I'm going to finish them off at home. I haven't done the eyes or anything fancy like that, but I'm going to finish them at home. But what's exciting about arriving in the big city of Perth today
You're going to finish them at home? Come on now. That's a cop out, surely. I mean, like, you've got this far. You might as well finish them whilst you're out and about there, surely.
I don't have there's final bits that I need that I've got in my kit at home that I just don't have here,
you can
basing materials that I want to do.
Go out and pick some stones off the beach or something. Yeah. Like you got to. There must
get
be
some
there
dust.
Must be.
Dust
get some dust. Find a dead tarantula and put it on the base, something like that.
Yeah.
It'll be a funnel web here, mate. I'm not touching any of the spiders in Australia. It's the scariest place for creepy crawlies in the world.
Xenos.
But the benefit of being here is that for the first time in 3 months, I went to a Games Workshop today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Today?
Perth Games Workshop went today.
Games Workshop down
no
under.
way. What did they? Yeah. So, what were the people? What were the staff like in there?
Oh, lovely lady working in there called Tegan. Chatted to her for ages. She said that Perth, the store I went to today, there's 5 stores in Perth, 5 Games Workshops.
What?
I know, crazy.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
but actual Games Workshop today. Shops, not just independent. What? That must be the most
Warhammer.
That's a really high density.
Crazy, right?
That must be the most in any city, surely. I mean, London. Yeah. I mean, I suppose it depends what you call London, I suppose.
But Matt, it doesn't stop there, right? Because Perth is the dweeb capital of Australia, it would seem. Because we went there, and my partner's been reading the Horus Heresy, and we were looking for the next book for her, and they've got a very small supply in this Games Workshop. So we said, "Where should we go?" And they said, "There's a bookstore down the road called White Dwarf." Which was set up by a bloke called Tim, who loves Games Workshop, and set up a sci-fi bookshop called White Dwarf with the original white on blue White Dwarf font and White Dwarf.
How's he got away with that?
I have no idea.
Games Workshop, don't listen to this.
But it was amazing. We went in, they had loads of rare books, some old copies of Dark Heresy stuff.
Oh, cool.
Some of the old omnibuses, the Ravener books that you can't get your hand on for love nor money, and loads of other bits and bobs. And then I went to a shop called Tactics, which had the biggest, this is an independent gaming store, that had the biggest selection of Warhammer I have ever seen in any shop outside of Warhammer World.
Really?
They had everything. They had, Matt, 3 boxes of the Old World starter set just on the shelf.
No way.
Yeah, things that sold out in a second in the UK, just all stocked up here in Australia.
So,
and then
Perth is like a Warhammer mecca.
It really does seem to be. And she told me why everything's so expensive here. You'll love this. You know how people are always arguing about tampons getting the luxury tax? Well, in Australia, Games Workshop products are classed as a hobby, and therefore they have a luxury governmental tax on.
Oh, right.
Not only are the import costs higher, but that's partly why it costs so damn much here.
Yeah, it's just playing Warhammer and having your period are basically the same thing. So, it makes sense in terms of taxation.
So, yeah, I had a great day today of going and talking to people about Warhammer. I've given our card out, so I'm expecting a boom in our Australian listenership. And I will be making an Australian video at some point in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to start work on my Kroot, which are going to be Australian themed, let's put it that way.
Just to go back to the Australian money, it being super expensive for Warhammer, there is it. So
Yeah.
it's not Games Workshop jacking up the price. It's their greedy government getting their mitts in.
I think it might be a little bit of the first, but it's definitely some of the second. That's for sure. I picked up a paint today, and it was a contrast paint was $11 dues, 11.50.
So what
which
was
is
that in?
Which is about about £6, I think.
Down.
Roughly.
I bet you about £4 of that ends up straight in Gav Thorpe's pocket, and the other two goes into the Prime Minister of Australia.
Yeah.
That's right. Maybe he's got the big collection though. Maybe he spends all of that tax on buying his own Warhammer. But anyway, it was great to go and see some painting and some hobbyists. The Perth Games Workshop lady said that people that come into the store, there are 3 Golden Demon winners that live here that frequent her store in central Perth. So well, that was pretty cool as well.
That's it. You've got to do some painting there then, Welshie. There's something in the water. Get something going on in Perth that's inspiring all these Golden Demon winners and stuff. You need to pay homage to Perth.
If it wasn't 40 degrees in the van, I would have been doing it, but I'll be doing some shortly because we're going to the colder side of Australia. So don't worry, I'll be back on it. Keep your eye on the shorts.
The cold side, the renowned cold side of Australia.
I think it's 25 degrees at the moment.
Well, Matt, what have you? What's your Warhammer progress been?
Well, I mean, same really as ever. Kind of not a great deal, but I did finish a couple of models. For Darren Latham did like a glow up thing, so I painted an archer. Finished a few other bits and bobs. I think
about that snail, Matt. That's what.
The snail. Yeah, I painted a snail. And I think last time I mentioned I was going to do some Space Marines. That hasn't happened yet, but I got my the Warhammer Plus model. So normally I like to just, if I remember, I get it before I forget about it. So I've got the Inquisitor, and that's gone straight into my drawer. where it will remain with the other ones. And so not a lot, but I did actually yesterday. I got Space Marine, so I've held off. Been quite busy just with other stuff. So I got Space Marine yesterday. I've been on there about an hour. Hopefully get another hour on tonight. It's pretty fucking good. I mean, the hype.
What you've got to do is try not to play too much, because I don't want to come home and just be beaten by you continuously.
No, I won't be playing too much. But I've mentioned before where all you want from a Warhammer game is for them to capture the scale. And within the first hour, I can tell you conclusively that they have captured the scale of Warhammer 40,000. It is amazing. Yeah, I got my ruler out to check, and they got it right. And also, I've seen a few people talk about it online where the Imperial Guard are in it a lot, and the Cadian 8th, which are the regiment that I've painted my colours in. They're like the standard old Cadian colours. They're in it a lot, and actually, it's really because they've got this whole thing. I'm sure you've read about it, where they've got this like swarm. The way they've been able to program the game is like all these big swarms, and you see literally thousands of Tyranids on the horizon, but they're actually real Tyranids. So if you don't shoot them, they're coming for you, and they'll just thousands of them will come at you. And there's parts on the game where you're sort of within the Imperial Guard defenses, and you really get a sense. They really capture a sense of, on their own, the Imperial Guardsman is like nothing, but you've got 1,000 lasguns firing at that swarm, and some tanks and some aerial support, and that swarm is getting blown to pieces. Like normally the Tyranids will come, they'll take tanks, and guardsmen are dying, but they really capture the essence of the Guard, which is just massed firepower. Individually they're useless, but together they're like the firepower is just amazing. So they've really captured that, and the airstrikes, artillery, it's amazing. It's really good.
How many times have you sat there and been like, "Oh, look at that awesome, wicked, massive Tyranids! Oh shit! Now I'm dead. I've not been fighting this full Tyranid."
Yeah. A few times. There's been like the what's it, the Gyarados guy? What are those called? The Tigrons that go under the ground.
The ones that
Yeah,
come underground.
there's ones like that I've fought. I've killed a Carnifex. They're all in there like warriors with buoyant. What? A real
killed
one.
Carnifex in the first hour of playing.
Yeah,
Where do they go from there?
you know have died a few times, but yeah. I mean, and the hype it seems online has meant that the game has been you'd say pretty successful. It's got to be the most successful Warhammer game ever. I don't know. I mean, everyone's been talking about it, posting all their because you can design your own Space Marines. Everyone's posting their own Space Marines online.
I've definitely noticed on all of the like social media groups and stuff, people like newbies turning up, just posting things like played Space Marine 2, want to know about the lore, where do I start? There's a lot of that going on. So it's clearly bringing new people into the universe.
And I saw a couple of weeks ago, I saw people sort of questioning like Games Workshop, when are you releasing the plastic Captain Titus, which you know they released in America in that box set. But then I saw the Brighton, so our local Games Workshop, posting that they'd got more Captain Titus in stock. So they must be like, maybe he's not on the website, but people you can buy them. So he certainly sold out a couple of times in the Brighton store, and they've been getting more stock of him. So I'm glad that they're sort of jumping on. I want Games Workshop to jump on that hype train. They've got a plastic Titus, fucking sell him. It's really good. So no doubt I'll be playing a little bit more in the next couple of weeks, and that might be most of what my hobby is spent on. What about you, Stoney?
Well, it's been a little while since we last recorded, and to be honest, I've kind of enjoyed having a bit of a break from doing like knowing about Warhammer and stuff. But like
heresy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got some of the stuff kind of sorted for my Gene Stealer cult, but like I've still kind of want to change parts of it and things like that, and still want to, I don't know.
The stuff you've shared looks badass though.
Yeah, I'm kind of going on and off parts of it, like the lady riding on the Gene Stealer, which I made. I kind of feel like, maybe there's things that I want to do differently and stuff. But yeah, so anyway, it's a big project, but I wanted to take a bit of a break from it, to be honest with you, just because I've been doing it for a while. But I'm still working on it in the background, but not make it my kind of main focus of the things that I'm doing at the moment. So my little daughter got gifted this weird like baby toy that like breathes. It's got like a thing in it, so you're supposed to like.
So it's like a little cow. It's like a Scottish cow, a Highland
cow. Yeah, but it's got like a breathing thing in the center of it, so it like expands and depresses. Like it's breathing, and it kind of freaks the fuck out of the baby. But like I was thinking, maybe I could, because I kind of want to make something. So I was thinking, maybe I could make some kind of like weird pulsating scenery with it. So I was
that'd be awesome.
So I'm at some stage again, I'd dismantle this cow and like see what's going on in his guts and make it into some kind of weird pulsating Nurgle scenery. And then I was thinking, I've still got some stuff like these like old teeth. Those like I've got a load of fake teeth a while ago. I was telling you guys about, which I kind of like made some like Nurgle trees and stuff. And I thought like, maybe I could make some pulsating toothy Nurgle.
It sounds pretty grim, so it sounds good.
Yeah, so I thought like, maybe something like that. So I don't know. I want to just do something like get my hands on something and like make something like proper, and then of course I'm beginning the gradual turn to make this podcast into a Trench Crusade podcast by continuing to want to do that. So watch this space, people.
Finance, cutting-edge technology. Accurate information is the Large Blast podcast news. Hear every episode.
They called us crazy. They said it would never happen, but it turns out Fulgrim is real, and he is coming out. We swear he is. We promise he is, and we're going to make good on that. And GW have finally said that he is, and we promised that he is. Isn't that right, boys? Right?
Right.
Not quite, actually, boys. Sorry, just to temper that a little bit. They released the Emperor's Children's symbol, and 2025. But it's a big release. Surely it's time. Surely
Yeah,
Slanesh
it
is.
is.
We can't have been wrong for this long.
Maybe that means it's the year they're going to kill off Slanesh. They're like, no, we're expunging him from all records. Like, Fulgrim is out.
We've got rattlings with sausages now. We can't have multi-boobed demons. I'm excited by that because I'm gonna have a massive need to play some Warhammer when I get back from this big long traveling trip, and my Emperor's children have not graced the table, so hopefully I'll be able to get back, finish off an army, and see what happens with those new models. It'd be really, really cool. I'm excited. I hope it's Fulgrim and it's not just some weak ass like one unit release and a codex.
It won't. This is the time. This is the time. We've had Angron. We've got a Primarch for every other Chaos God. Like it, yeah. It's going to happen, I think. And also, like, you know, from a business point of view, this year they've had some pretty big releases, including Space Marine 2. And next year, don't know what more they can do. You know, they're going to release some more kill teams. You know, they've got to come out with something big. And it's normally something big straight after Christmas. Get those January, February sales in. Get that last quarter sale up. I reckon Fulgrim will fit in nicely in that slot.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying nothing. I'm not adding to the collection of sound bites of us saying, you wait, next week, Fulgrim's going to be coming out. This is Fulgrim for sure. So
I guarantee when it happens, we'll all miss it, or like it will just pass us by.
Well, it's almost it's almost at the stage where I don't even care anymore. It's a bit like, you know, when we were talking about what was it? We were doing our 99 Problems one, and we were talking about how, like, in a way, it doesn't matter if Fulgrim comes out. Like, it's almost because it's so expected. I almost kind of want Kurz or somebody else to come out now.
I'm a little bit apprehensive, actually. I'm a bit worried. It's because the 30k model was so good, so beautiful, so dark, so much what I want Fulgrim to look like. I'm really worried the 40k one is going to be cartoony, and they're going to do something to Slanesh that ruins it. It's going to be too much like the Sigmar Slanesh and not enough like 40k Slanesh.
At least if they release rules for him, you can use the 30k one. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's an excuse to buy that model at least.
Yeah, for sure. But some different wings, because I ain't transporting that anywhere. Well, Fulgrim's coming. You heard it here first.
The other bit of news that I wanted to mention is the Dark Mech models that have come out for Legions Imperialis, the Titanicus scale, epic scale game. So there's actual Dark Mechanicum models now that you can buy. I mean, and they look amazing really as well. They look really creepy.
Yeah, like really
so they're like
spidery.
So they're sort of Titans and stuff, or would be in terms of their scale supposed
to
be.
I don't. Well, you know, because they've released like Lehman Russ tanks, and you can buy now. It's a whole separate game to Titanicus, but it's the same scale. So you can buy like tanks, loads of tanks, and they're sort of tank-sized armored vehicles.
Okay.
So they're weird, like creepy crawly. They're like spiders. I mean, they are exactly what you'd imagine the Dark Mech to look like, really. But obviously from 30k, so they've not been full 40k'd yet, but they're still dirty insect-looking construction.
I like that there's quite a lot of design pull from the Venom crawler. You know, the big fat ass spider. It's got that kind of pointy look to it, but it's not quite chaos. It's kind of not quite there yet. But I think they're very cool. Yeah, good job. I've forgotten about them.
That's it. So that's it. The next prediction is Fulgrim's not coming out, and he's going to be destroyed and taken over by Vashtor and his range of new. So a new kill team, and it's getting small up in here, small and sausagey. It's the Rattling Snipers, brimming with personality. They're the hobbits of 40k, and kill team done it again. Any bad words we said about them in that little blip in the middle have been retracted. This is fucking awesome. Rattling Snipers. Matt, I know you're a big fan of these. What do you reckon?
Oh, they're so good. The double based sniper team, the guys with the sausages, are amazing. But then the other guys that have various other bits of food in are amazing. I mean, it's just so they've really captured the character of the old Ratling models. So there's been a few ranges of metal Ratlings, and it's great to get finally some plastic Ratlings. And they are I mean, they are in essence hobbits, but they captured the hobbit aesthetic quite well, whilst also fitting in with the new guard range. They have nods to the uniforms. They have design nods to the newer ranges. Yeah, they're great. And a complete surprise. I don't think if you'd have said to me what the next guard kill team would be, that I would have said Ratlings. But actually, it makes sense as a kill team because they are snipers. So yeah, it's really good.
They're wicked, and they work so great. I mean, again, what's so good about the kill team boxes is if you've got like another army, you could spice it up so much by putting in some of these kill team stuff. Like, if you had an Inquisitor army, or like, just done those Imperial agents, haven't they, or Imperial Guard, or even like a Space Marine or something kind of army. This is fucking awesome.
I know what you mean with the kill teams added to armies, Stoney, because I definitely don't have a Tau army, and I definitely won't be adding my Vespid Stingwings to it.
Oh yeah,
but the Ratlings I think are cool. I hate the cartoony appeal of certain parts of 40k, but I've got to let the Ratlings through because they are carrying on a legacy that they've always had. That's always been the way they are. And I don't know if you guys saw the reveal video.
Yeah,
you see the reveal video where he was talking about how you can bake a pie in the field and cook it on the engine hub of a Lehman Russ. It's a really good little video. It's worth looking up. Made me chuckle. So I love them. I've spent too much on kill teams, so I probably won't end up getting them. Interesting. I thought that that's two guard kill teams in a row, if you count the Militarum Tempestus as guard, which they basically are.
And actually, they've probably got the most out of any army. Because we've got the Death Corps, the Cadian Stormtroopers, the Kaskin, the Militarum Tempestus, and now these guys.
But it's like we've always said with the kill team stuff, is it does really pander to like people that are into the old school lore. And guards have had, although the guard range is well catered for, it is missing so much because of its long history. It's missing the Iron Guard, these other guys and stuff. So and Kill Team is the perfect place to release those kind of models. So it makes perfect sense. I mean, I think maybe like we're going to see later on in the episode, the fact that the Guard has so much stuff can almost begin a lot of new GW money making ventures. So
I'd really love to see an Ogrin Bulgrin Kill Team.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
After a while, they're going to start getting crazy, like Blood Bowl 3 or whatever. There's like teams where it's like, it's a Wolfman and a Dr. Frankenstein and stuff. You're like, I swear I don't remember this shit being in fucking Warhammer.
Rolling in my 6-4.
G'day, you're through to the Australian Internet Embassy. We're currently experiencing a high volume of calls. You are currently number
69
in a queue. If you're one of the recent Large Blast podcast listeners ringing to complain about their sound quality, just know it's not our fault, alright? Bleeding dingo chewed the internet wire that goes to Large Blast Podcast Studios. Hold on a minute, I'm just getting a fax through. Struth, this one says I've been fired for having an offensive Australian accent. Crikey, what a bunch of wallaby cunts that is. Anyway, sorry about the sound quality, it's not our fault.
Oh, can you guys smell that? The smell of fresh resin in the air? Oh, I can't feel my left arm, and I can smell resin. Is something happening? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I've been caught halfway through having a Forge World attack, because that's what we're doing today. We're talking about the resin. We're talking about the company that is Forge World. And I think this is going to be quite a nostalgic journey for all of us, because let's face it, Forge World is one of the things that really blows you away. I remember rejoining the hobby after a long period of time. Like I say, second edition. That was my heyday, when I was born and raised in the GW sphere, and then I left for a long time, and I came back and I wanted to see what was going on, and I checked online and there was Forge World, and you can imagine that coming from like Warhammer Tree Man, like all those guys stood with like the bolters strapped across their chest, and then all of a sudden you're like, Forge World, how much does it cost? What? I'll never spend that much money on Warhammer. 10 years later, second mortgage on the house due to Warhammer. And now, I can see why Forge World is there and what a legendary company it has become.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. It happened just after second edition, right? In fact, it was first announced, I was reading earlier, at the same time as they announced third edition. So the same issue of White Dwarf, they announced Forge World 1998 and third edition 40k, which I think was the edition Matt and I started playing. We would have both been, 8 years old then, Matt? 8 or 9.
Third edition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that the one with the Dark Eldar?
Yeah, Dark Eldar.
I think so. Yeah, and the square boxes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but they weren't the first. I mean, we've talked about them in the past, these other resin model companies that existed. And there was even, confusingly, and there's going to be some more confusing naming conventions happen later on in this tale of Forge World. But there was another company called Forge World that used to make these peripheries for Games Workshop. And Games Workshop licensed them until October of 1998, where it pulled a lot of its licenses and then announced that they were going to do Forge World.
So that company that Stoney's talking about there, if you guys have ever seen, it's that really orangey looking resin, right? Those big ones.
Yeah, there's Armor Cast, there was Forge World, a couple of other ones as well. I think there was like 4 companies that was doing it before Forge World came along and kind of got in there.
Was Armor Cast the one that was based from the States? Was the one that was in the States?
Yeah. Well, Armor Cast was really interesting. I think we've talked about this before our Titan one.
Yeah.
But it's this guy, Mike
Biassi.
But he's like a legend in geek lore. Like he became like a crazy cool cosplayer. What's he called? Mike. I can't remember. I went down like I remember not this time round. I learnt my lesson, but first time round when we did the research for the Titans episode and we were talking about this guy.
Mike Biassi.
I was convinced that he was also a contestant on the American series of Survivor because there was another guy called Mike with the exact same name who appeared on Survivor and he worked in some kind of workshop making something, but was always really unclear as to what his job was.
So you never got to the bottom of it?
No, they are 2 different people. I've eventually worked out they are 2 different people. But anyway, that aside, he was the Armor Cast guy.
For sure. So when they pulled it all under the official GW banner, it was originally set up for terrain and large scale. And then very shortly in 1999 was when they started using the term Imperial Armor. And they introduced vehicles and monstrous creatures, as well as accessory and upgrade kits.
GW did also take a little bit of a foray into making big models before Forge World with their Thunderhawk model, the legendary
the metal one,
Thunderhawk, which they released the year before and was like wildly successful. But like it's like a thing of legend now. It's like an all lead fucking. It's like the size of a goddamn shoebox. It's all lead and perched on one of those little like spikes, those crappy old school Warhammer spikes. You know, it's got like 17 of them underneath it, trying to like lift this goddamn thing.
The guy that designed that was one of the 2 guys that was put in charge of Forge World when it started. So the actual guy that did that was involved.
Well, I mean, that could definitely be a proof of concept model for sure.
Yeah.
I always like to think that there must have been some kind of meeting in Games Workshop. You know, I have no proof of this. Don't take this as gospel in any way. Where some guy just came in and was like, "Come on, guys, let's do it." And everyone was like, "What do you mean, let's do it?" And he's like, "You know what I'm talking about. We've been pussyfooting around it for too long. It's time to make these big ass models that are in the back of all the pictures and everything." And they're like, "Son of a bitch did it. He was just crazy enough to do it." And you know, it's kind of like just a turning point in Games Workshop history.
You're right, because the small scale games had already existed, right? That first Titan versus Titan game that we talked about already existed. Someone he not only had to come in and go, you know how a couple of years ago we had that meeting where we decided we couldn't make really big models, so what we were going to do is make them all in 6mm scale. Oh, fuck that.
Yeah, let's do that. That's pussy shit.
Everything
throws everything off the table. Yeah, definitely.
Everything we said at that meeting, gone.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the models that were like armor cast and stuff made were like direct rip-offs of the the epic stuff. They'd just
Yeah.
make big versions of the epic things. But what I also thought was quite interesting about the Imperial armor stuff was, particularly with the books, is it initially started as like a section in a journal, the Citadel Journal, under the Imperial armor column, right?
Yeah, for sure. But I
So,
couldn't find very much about that, what
well,
that actual Citadel journal was.
no, I couldn't find anything much about it either, but it was almost kind of it was very instrumental in the creation of Imperial armor in the first place. Because like when third edition rolled out, and because it used to the rules that it used to publish in Citadel Journal were always considered to be completely unofficial. They were just like Forge World existed, but it had these unofficial rules that basically Games Workshop couldn't be asked to test. Essentially, so they were basically allowing fans to make the rules. And then when third edition rolled around and they did, and Jarvis Johnson rules for like tanks and vehicles changed, where they had the front armor and the back armor and stuff like that.
Good days.
That was
good days.
But that was like a massive like step forward in a way for like people doing their homebrew stuff and things like this. And it meant that the guy that was publishing the Citadel Journal, who was a man named Warwick Kingsgrad, put together rules that were based around the stats of like set out by Jarvis Johnson, and it basically meant that Games Workshop could just be like, yeah, well, that's pretty like basic and easy, like rubber stamp that motherfucker. And they allowed him to release 2 books that were called Imperial Armor 1 and 2, which is different, again, with naming convention, from Imperial Armor Volume 1 and 2, which is the hardback ones that we know. And they were basically Imperial Armor 1 is all like your Bane Blades, your Storm Lords, all your like Imperial Guard stuff, and Imperial Armor 2 was all your Stompers and Eldar shite, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. It said on the Imperial armor kits that you could get, it wrote on the side of the bag, I saw ultra cool, ultra detailed, ultra specialist
Ultra
add-ons.
cool.
Adult
toy.
Well, no, the toy thing it did also used to say, and it still says 15 plus on the website today, not suitable for less than 15. These models are not in bold toys. So if anyone ever tells us we play with toys, boys, just show them
I will show them the side of my toy box to prove them wrong.
But those Imperial Armor books ran for a long time. So those softback ones were from 2000 to 2006. And then the hardbacks all the way up to 2014. And I know, Matt, you've got a particular love for a lot of those. Books, like
I have. I mean, that stuff. Yeah, the Imperial Armor books. So I remember when they advertised the book, the Imperial Armor Volume 1. So that's the first what I consider to be Imperial Armor books. Like you say, Stoney, there's kind of the naming conventions are a bit confused because there were other books of the same name, but the Volume 1, which is all about the Imperial Guard. I remember when they previewed that in White Dwarf. And I think at the time, this is 2002, I think. At the time, I was just sort of buying kits. I wasn't playing the game. I knew other people that were buying kits and painting, but it was starting, I was getting a bit older. And it just sort of fit into a niche where it was a bit like the book itself. I know the people that wrote the book were really into World War II tanks and World War II history, and the book itself is sort of, there's bits in there where they've obviously copied the layout that you have in World War II military campaign books. So it's got all of the military structures of the Guard, it's got more details of the tanks. It's like they've wanted to flesh out and make like a Lehman Russ more real.
It's it's almost like the stats next to it, doesn't it? It's like it weighs this much. This
They've
is
got
the
weights,
size of the barrel,
the speed,
and stuff like that.
And they've got like stuff in there about Imperial Armored companies, and they've got like how an Imperial Armored regiment would be divided up, and they have all the rules for playing the models, and they've got Imperial Armor Volume 1. I remember, I don't know, I must have been like 13. So the book seemed like really expensive at the time. It was like 40 quid or something, big, heavy hardback book, like it's just like books that you'd see in World War II museums, where like people would buy and want to know about every nut on a tank or something. But I just remember getting it and being like, yeah, this is the sort of the hobby stuff that I like. Like I want to see somebody flesh out, why is an Imperial Marauder bomber, which is like one of the two massive bomber kits that you can buy from Forge World, which always looked like really square and angular, but also looked really cool. And like, how do you paint markings on there that can identify different squadrons? And it's got all of that sort of stuff in. And it's like, yeah, this is the sort of the hobby stuff that interests me. I want to see how those tanks can form in like how 10 tanks form together in the world of 40k. And they have the campaign is written very differently to how the Games Workshop Warhammer was written, where everything's just like there's a million Xenos and then a million tanks get blown up and then the Imperium wins. It's like much more like real life, if you like. So I remember getting that, and that almost, I think, kept me in the hobby. Then they had Imperial Armor Volume 2, which is Space Marines. So they had the Thunderhawk. I don't know whether they didn't have the resin. Maybe they did have the resin. They must have had the resin Thunderhawk for then, because the other thing that the books brought in was the photography, where the models were presented, and they did have this a bit before those books. I remember in year 7, so 2001, we would sit in IT class, which was like the class where everyone would just piss around. And we would just sit
load
on
up Unreal Tournament on the LAN.
Well, we would.
If only
we would
we'd
like...
known then how we were like, oh, this internet thing will never. This is a flash in the pan. We don't need to worry about what's going on here.
We would sit in IT and look at the Forge World website. And as you say, it was like mostly terrain and like city fight terrain. They had like resin city fights and bunkers and stuff that you could buy, and just like, wow, the models are amazing. But then
it's the first time I remember seeing dry ice smoke.
Oh,
being,
cool.
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So the photography brought in this way of trying to present the models like they were real armored vehicles.
But it definitely was like everything about those books was kind of like made to be more like kind of gritty and real and like and it definitely was like you say, there was this kind of like almost like a ceiling on 40k, particularly at the time with the kind of the limitations on the models, because the Forge World models were so much better as well. Mm-hmm. They were like noticeably better.
Yeah,
there was almost kind of like this ceiling on 40k where you're like, okay, you can be this into it, but then there's almost it's almost like there's this little door at the back where they're like, sir, I see you're looking a bit jaded and bored by what we have here. Maybe you want to have a look in here. And you go through and it costs £1 million to enter, but you can,
It wasn't just the models themselves that were in there. It was like, not only is there more detail in the models, there's more detail in the description of the warfare. Yeah. There's more detail in the photography. It was also that there was more detail in, oh shit, there's a whole new world of hobby that I didn't know I could do. What are these things called? Weathering pigments. You know, you're telling me I can put some dust on a model and then make it wet and it looks like 100 times better than dry brushing gone brown.
I mean, like, they would definitely, because a lot of like what do you call it? Like historical model making, you can buy kits and then you can buy extra like brass etched detailed kits for like model shipping and tanks, where people just spend so much time building the models. And it definitely there are companies that you can buy kits like that for model ships and stuff, add-ons. So it definitely fulfilled a niche for Warhammer. And I think you can tell those early Imperial Armor books definitely were by people that also did model ships and model boats and were into
proper military
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And there's a picture at the back of volume 1 where the guy is he sat on a German World War II tank called the Mouse. They built 2 of them, and one of them's in Ukraine. And it just says, there's a picture of him on there, and it just says like whatever his name is. It might even been Warwick, who you mentioned, because he was the author of the first few books. And it said like his hobby is flying around the world to locate rare World War II armored vehicles. And he's there on this like fucking stupid German tank design that never went in production. And
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 got
that's
like a book of rubbings from the different different plates on there and stuff.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, it was and I so I didn't get the second book because it was Space Marines, but I got the third one, which is the Tau one, where the Taurus campaign. I know we've mentioned before, and that's where there's like a load of crude stuff in there because it just hadn't.
Manta.
They could, the Manta, and the huge Manta, which is that not the biggest Forge World model?
Still the biggest.
And but also it kind of went into that book. Kind of went into a bit more of the politics of like how the Imperium dealt with the Tau Empire, and there's stuff in there. There's a whole campaign in there as like this world just increasingly trading with this Imperial planet, so it becomes more and more like a Tau world, even though it's human. And that's just that. Yeah, it was another aspect to the hobby that you buy a codex. It's just there's none of that in the codex. It's just
I mean, for me, one of the things we've talked about way back in the first episode, we all talked about how we got into Warhammer, and I think I've talked about it, throughout a little bit here and there. And I might even have told this story before, but the way I got like back into Warhammer, like in about 2010 or something, was like I've just broken up with this girl. We'd been living in a house together. So she left, she took my cat, she took everything, I was just left alone in this house. And like I was like, I'm gonna go and buy some Warhammer. And I went and I bought like a Demon Prince, and like I made him into like 3 different things and like a bunch of green stuff. And all I had was like a sofa and a mattress. And I just sat there sadly making Warhammer, but like loving it, loving the new freedom to sit around making Warhammer in my pants. It was the good times. And then I was like came across the Forge World stuff and was just like fucking just blown away by. They had the Chaos Cultists. They're like the guys with like the bags on their heads and the weird arms and stuff. And like the Chaos Ogre, and it's all stuff that like when you're looking through the Warhammer selection, you're like, I wish it had stuff like this. Like, I know that this stuff exists, especially coming from second edition, where it's all like John Blanchian style art and stuff. You're like, I'm like, where's all of this stuff? Like in this range. Yeah, and it was all in that Forge World. And just like, and then looking at the price and being like, I would never, again, just going back to like, this is just exactly how they get you. It's just like, it just plants this little seed in there. And you're like, I would never do this, like spend £1,000 on Warhammer. I've just spent 20 quid on this and made it last into 3 models. Fuck you, Mr. Games Workshop. I'm the winner. And then, years later, thousands of pounds invested, like hundreds of hours of time,
Base.
Then there was a fourth Imperial Armor book, which was about a Tyranid Xenos research station on some moon, and that's where they had like all of brought out some of that terrain, the Mortis terrain, I think it's called.
Yeah,
I think worth saying that Forge World did have this terrain aspect to it as well. It wasn't just these cool monsters. I remember seeing those feeder tendrils, those Tyranid things, spiky bits that go up to the main bits, and being like, wow, that's really cool. I've never seen it because everything's just castles. They also did the that really classic that I think they repeated in plastic, but the crashed Valkyrie, that was originally in resin. Yeah, there was a massive thing called the Anthelion base.
So the Anthelion base is the thing from the fourth Imperial Armor book, where it's like a research station where they've got like Tyranids in test tubes and they're trying to work out what the Tyranids are. It's really cool.
And things, it was such attention to detail, like the crashed Valkyrie. Didn't it come with like a little pilot, like a little dude as well, like an escaped kind of guy? Yeah.
And also they made Weathertop.
Yeah. The Lord of the Rings.
They made Weathertop. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. You could buy the whole thing, couldn't you? Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah. Since the fantasy stuff, I mean, the website's not up anymore, as we will get onto, but the fantasy stuff seemed to sort of vanish like over a decade ago. They really stopped way before they got rid of the old world. There was sort of less and less fantasy Forge World.
they had some Chaos Dwarf stuff that hung on for a little while.
All right.
I thought, like,
don't remember that.
I vaguely remember them having like being a place where you could see Chaos Dwarf.
I mean,
stuff.
I guess there's to like the war just 40k. The setting just offers so many more options for aircraft, ships. I mean, they had Battlefleet Gothic ranges. Like you could buy the Tau fleet. You couldn't buy from Games Workshop, but they had an entire Tau fleet that you could buy. Battlefleet Gothic range. They had we've all loved the cheerleader models that they had for Blood Bowl, just all the extra stuff. Remember, they had like referees. But I mean, for me, I think that really they hit the ground running when they got to the 5th Imperial Armor book, which is the Siege of Vrax, Volume 1.
Before you go into that, Matt, because you're going to get an armor hard on. That 4th book with the Tyranids, for me, being like super positive because we all love Forge World, it's like the only miss in the Forge World range. I'm a massive Tyranid player, and I think they're really off with those big Tyranid models. The Malanthrope's cool, but the Hierophant, the really big one, I don't like, and the
is that the one with the wing?
The Scythed Hierodules, they don't fit the rest of the Tyranid range at all.
Yeah,
they look like completely different organisms, and it's always made me a little bit sad. And that's why I got so excited.
That's what you get.
Out the like knight-sized Tyranid model, the more recent one, and I hated it too. I don't feel like I've ever been served with a good large-scale Tyranid model.
That's what you get when you get like a military historian design a giant alien insect model.
They need a biologist on the team.
Yeah. But the Death Corps of Krieg had sort of been around. They'd had a bit of lore about them, but when they released the 5th book with the army list, and then it wasn't you couldn't get the whole army range at the beginning, so they were dropping Death Corps of Krieg releases after the book, because they went on to do 2 other books. So it's a whole campaign that runs across 3 Imperial Armor books. There's various army lists, including the Renegades and Traitors, Stone Eater, the ones with those hoods on, and the crazy Ogryn models. They were all part of that. I mean, it's just to make an alternative Imperial Guard full range. So armored vehicles, infantry, command squads, artillery, fire support. They had the whole range, and you could buy. So the terrain aspect, when the Death Corps came out, you could buy all the trenches. So you could buy a resin trench system, and then a huge wall, like Imperial wall, that when they got to the 3rd book was like the last defense of this, like what was an imperial storage facility that essentially had been taken over by Chaos. So it was just full of Imperial armor. And they had this huge wall set. I think there's still one of the boards in Warhammer World has it at the end, which is hundreds of pounds back like 15 or however long years ago. Just huge chunks of resin. And the Death Corps as well, a point where Forge World sort of their manufacturing ability to create better models sort of jumped up a bit. Before it was a bit chunky, still wasn't great. You kind of would be a bit worried about buying some Forge World stuff, but the Death Corps were like, really the first time they'd done such a big range of 28, 32 mil miniatures. And they were good models. And they seemed people, they had a following. They were like, people love it.
So finely detailed. It's worth saying though that despite the quality of the miniatures going up, we've got to talk about Forge World packaging, because you pay all of that money for a perfect miniature, and you get like, do you remember the low res like picture inserts in the blister packs? If you bought something small, it wasn't even like printed properly, and you got no instructions.
Even it looks like it came off the fucking dark web or something. It's like some mystery box from the dark web.
Yeah. It's crazy. It does look like it's like a knockoff thing you bought down the market. I can't believe that still to this day you don't get like a decent packaging. You just get a plastic bag with some resin in it.
I wonder.
Like a sandwich bag.
Yeah, but I do wonder. Like I said, there's like an element where certainly in the earlier days, I don't know about now, but the Deathcore Krieg, as we've said, are a combination of all the major powers from World War One combined into one uniform. Who you could tell who they'd started to read that book because probably some of them had been on holiday to the battlefields of World War One and thought, oh, do you know what we should do? Let's flesh out the Death Corps of Krieg, and we're going to make them. We're going to have all these details. They definitely did model making on the side for historical model making, and half the extras you can buy for like your Tirpitz model or whatever are definitely. I've bought stuff like that before, and they're definitely made by a guy in his shed. And so you get like a printout on his dodgy printer.
Yeah.
And that there must just the normalization of that to them. They probably didn't think they probably. Oh, we don't need packaging.
What you can get away with when you put "this is not a toy" on the side of the box, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but this is kind of like one of the things that was so like amazing about, because even though Games Workshop changed and it started to become more and more kind of like, user friendly, like Forge World stubbornly remained like fucking hard for like a long last time. Like, do you guys remember that, like the Keeper of Secret model they used to do that had all of those it's a really cool model. I would hate to own it. Like things like, I remember seeing the kit for it, and it's got like the fingernails are all individual little dollops of resin you've got to like put into its hands. Its hair all starts as like straight bits of resin that you have to heat up and shape to like how you want it to be and stuff. It's just like, mate, that like it all looks great. Do I want to own any of it? Not a fucking chance. No.
I mean, and just continuing chronologically, I can't even remember what followed. Sure. What followed the Death Corps books, but I'm pretty sure that it wasn't long after the last of the Death Corps book, which must have been
the Necron one.
But it wasn't long after that the first Primarch came out, which would have been Angron, because he's been out for so long, and that again is another point where they seem to have stepped up what they could make in modern form, bringing out those Primarchs.
I forgot about the Primarchs. They make so much stuff. That's crazy. Like, yeah,
and they haven't even finished the range yet, have they? I mean, the ranges are just phenomenal, aren't they? Like, we've spoken about the Titans before. It was just such an asset to Games Workshop.
Well, shit, you own a few of the Primarch models, don't you?
Okay, so yeah, I've got some of the Primarch models. The first one I bought was Fulgrim, because I love Fulgrim. I don't know if you've got that from listening to the podcast, but Fulgrim is great. I think it was possibly like the first resin model I ever got. I never bought any Forge World stuff when I was a kid. I just looked lovingly at the pictures of Imperial armor, and then I bought it. And I remember having to I remember chatting to you actually, Matt, about it and being like, "What do I do?" And you telling me about having to get a toothbrush and scrub it with
clean it off.
Fairy liquid, and being like, "Are you joking?" You're like, "No, that's what you got to get rid of the moldry." So I set up a little table, cleaning station, a little towel to dry everything off. And then I remember being confused that his lair sword, the like most important artifact in all of the Horus Heresy, was at a right angle, bent in the middle. Being like, how the fuck am I supposed to sort this? And having to get the hot water out and like slowly bend it back into shape,
straighten it out.
And like you said, Stoney, I think each of the fingers wrapped around the grip of the gun or the sword was individual and had to be glued on individually, like wrapped around the hilt. But I still love painting it. And I think when you buy those Horus Heresy Primarch range, they come in this little black box. Those are nicely packaged. You get a nice little black kind of box with embossed gold writing on it. And it just makes you paint better because it's heavy, it feels weighty, you've spent more money on it, it's more detailed, and you sit and you paint. And I painted Fulgrim, and then I bought Corax, and then I bought Kurz, and then I bought Horus. And I think the Horus, by that point, getting used to the resin and the slight difference with painting, I think maybe my Horus Primarch is one of the best models I've ever painted. And that's purely because you want to do an amazing job, because it is an amazing product. The package might be shite, the instructions might be shite, the pain of building it and cleaning it and sticking it. But once you've got it in front of you, it makes you want to do a good job because it is a good product. And I think that's what Forge World has always been for people. Either that, or you just feel like it should be because you spent like triple the amount that you would on a plastic one. But
yeah,
I've loved painting my Primarchs, and they sit on the mantelpiece in my lounge there, in pride view in the house. I've got a back room with the rest of my army, but they're there on the mantelpiece, and people that have no interest in models think they're cool because they just have this level of quality.
Hi, you have reached Forge World's helpline. Please follow the instructions so we can best direct your call. If you have found a worker's tooth or disembodied finger in your recent order, please press 1. If you are finding some assembly aspects of your Forge World kit too challenging and are looking for advice, please press 2. Thank you, you have selected 2. You are finding aspects of our models too challenging. We here at Forge World don't believe in shortcuts. The only tip is to get better at it, dweeb. This shit isn't a toy, it says so right there on the box. Sure, you could go back to snapping together quick fit Games Workshop kits like a man with cow tits for hands. Or you could get good and join the adults at the Forge World table. We know technology has come a long way, and we don't need to make stuff so hard anymore, but fuck you, we want you to struggle. To know the sweet taste of victory, to dance the danger dance with defeat and win it all. So next time you're struggling, just try to think. Do I want to play with toys like a child? Or do I want to play with resin fantasy figurines like a big boy?
This call has been charged at 6 times your network rate.
For me, like most of my most of my experience of Forge World models are conversion kits. And I think that's where they also held a niche, certainly like for all the armored vehicles. So a lot of my tanks are just, you take the box standard Lehman Russ and then they've got a different turret, or they've got a different gun barrel, or they've got a different detail. I remember my really old Basilisk has got a conversion kit where it, from Forge World, it came like really cheap thing because I never really wanted to spend that much money and I was young. Where it was like you had to saw off the end, the loading end of the barrel on the plastic kit, and then glue on a resin bit, and it had you could open the breech. It had like, so because the plastic model was just like molded closed, so the Forge World kit came with a breech that was open, and then it came with like a stack of shells so to glue on your Basilisk kit. So I remember that was probably one of my first kits. The other thing I remember getting, I mentioned the purity seals in the last episode, because I was just basically buying the cheapest kit that you could buy off Forge World. They had a brass photo etched barbed wire, so you could buy, and it all came like cut out on a sheet of brass, but it was really good. It was like £4, and you got like 12 foot, and you could. I remember painting it all on the sprue and then cutting it all out, and then you could like, and it's still all on my terrain where it looks amazing. For scale barbed wire, it's so good.
Stoney, you said earlier you'd forgotten they made the Primarchs, but fast forwarding a bit to when they became the Specialist Design Studio in 2018 and took over these other games, we've also got to remember that all of Necromunda stuff that we love has fallen under their purview. All of those characters, before Games Workshop changed the website to be an utter pile of dog shite. I used to go on the website, I used to filter for Necromunda, and I'd just sit for half an hour looking through all of the 50 plus amazing Forge World resin characters that they'd made for Necromunda. every single one with personality. Epic, the new Epic stuff, the Adeptus Titanicus stuff, Imperialis, Aeronautica Imperialis, like the tiny new bits of like Titanic scale terrain, like so much stuff comes under their purview.
Yeah,
that we love. That like
absolutely.
never misses.
I think that's a good point. Actually, I also used to go on the old website, the old Forge World website, and just I would be at home having a drink, and I'd be like, oh, let's see if there's any new armored vehicles on the Forge World website. Go on there and just be like looking through them and like, oh yeah, I'd happily have that. Oh, I'd happily have that. I'd happily have that. Oh, that vehicle's amazing. And like doing the thing that literally I used to do when I was 13, and that's certainly a measure of success. And
there'd always be something I didn't know.
They have that still impact. They would, like you say, the character models.
Definitely. Check out. You just go onto the pre-orders on Forge World and Games Workshop website, and you'd be like, "Oh man, I hope there's going to be a new fucking Primarch." And I remember when Korax dropped and being like, "Oh shit, Korax has dropped!" Like just losing my mind. Like they didn't do it. I can't believe they did it. Like this is crazy.
Yeah, we should talk about the shop. Yeah,
but that's the thing about this shop is that you go to the shop and nothing's painted.
Yeah.
So
They don't give a fuck, mate. They'll sell you a half-finished model. They'll sell you something you've got to do most of the work for. They won't paint it. They won't package it good. They don't care. They know they've got a quality product.
This is the Forge World shop in Warhammer World. Yeah, and you do the same thing. You're just like shifting through clear plastic bags that just have a little sticker on that says the name of. And I whenever I've been there to try and get something, I've never found what I want. You always have to go and ask.
No.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, it's over here." rummage, pull it. Pull out a plastic bag. Yeah. So because that I know it's slightly different nowadays, isn't it? But certainly when as Forge World, those Imperial Armor books are coming out. I remember buying one of them from a Games Workshop, but the models were always buy on the website or mail order over the phone. You couldn't get them in store other than Warhammer World that had a Forge World. They always marketed as the only Forge World shop.
Which is not true because
not true anymore.
You can get it in the London one. They've actually got in-store products.
And didn't you see it in
Perth now,
Tokyo
as well?
Yeah. In Tokyo you can, and actually I was told today one of the other shops that's in Perth stocks some Forge World, a small Forge World supply. So some of the bigger city shops you can get Forge World. Not that you'd know what it is because it's all in unmarked boxes. But
exactly. People in other countries probably think it's been like illicitly smuggled over. They're like, "Oh, this has come over in someone's ass or something." Like, there's no way this is like how Forge World packages this shit.
Yeah.
Don't worry, people. It is. That's how it looks.
I smoke weed, eat pussy every day.
Well, is that enough reminiscing? Do we want to talk about the state of things now?
Yeah, let's do
it.
They did do some Imperial Armor indexes. So they did an index for 8th edition. I remember it came out. There was like a Xenos one and an Eldar one and
because
Imperial one.
8th edition was when 40k shifted away from, like we said, vehicle arcs and armor facing. That's when it went into like quote unquote modern 40k. The rule set changed, didn't it? Then, so they had to kind of bring out. Because they had the index books for everything, didn't they?
Yeah.
Like so for all of the armies.
Was just when 8th dropped at the start of 8th, you could buy rules for everything. And then, but the Imperial Armor stuff was all in the separate Imperial Armor books and not in the codices or with the armies.
Yeah.
And then they did a very condensed version of Imperial Armor in 9th edition, which was again just a book of rules that like really lazily just had pictures from the old Imperial Armor books on the front cover. They just picked like 3 different ones and merged them together. And I think that's when we realized that support for this stuff was decreasing, probably. Fast forward to 10th, and there's nothing really. there's some legends rules, like most of the things aren't supported at a competitive level at all, which is fine because the game's massive and you can't have everything balanced all the time. But God, I wish at some point next year they bring out something to just remind us that these exist, because the Forge World website is gone. The only way you'd know that it's Forge World now is it just has a 15 plus in the corner and says that it's made of resin.
Yeah.
It's worrying for these big things that they're just not going to be supported.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like I said a couple of episodes ago, though, the only thing that fills me with hope is when I got that trebuchet model, and the trebuchet was never a Forge World kit. It was a Metal Games Workshop kit, and it arrived. I knew it was going to be resin, but it arrived as a proper Forge World. It was in a Forge World box, just a white box with Forge World written on, but it had a Forge World instruction set, and it was in a plastic clear box, you know, with the resin instructions that you get with a Forge World kit. It was like a fully fledged Forge World kit, and it was an amazing kit. So I don't know, maybe, yeah, it's hard
There's
to know
lots
where
of
they're
things
going
out
with
of
it.
stock, and you wonder whether.
Yeah, I've heard people talking about some of the armored vehicles. Yeah.
But then maybe we do need to see like a reboot of stuff. They've obviously finished the original Primarch series, and we've seen a second Horus. Like, you know, if they continue making, and if that wasn't just because they were releasing the Horus Heresy game anew, and they're actually making cool modern versions of that, we might finally get a Khan on a bike.
They're going to do an Emperor. I reckon they'll do an Emperor.
Yeah.
I reckon they will.
They will, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, we've talked a long time. Has been a kind of, we've sort of queried where Forge World really fits nowadays and stuff. And I mean, the models will always have a place. People love them. The fact that they managed to, but think about this, they managed to sell over £1,000 worth of resin to nerds, like in the most inconvenient way possible. Like we've said, like the kit might not even arrive with all the right bits in. Some of it might be miscast and fucked up. Like you say, it's a gamble. You're giving this money over to like a maybe all these pieces are going to arrive. Okay, and like you know, resin, it's the shittiest material. Like, you know, the whole thing. Like, and it existed for what, decades, like flogging resin to nerds. Like, it's definitely got a place. And like there's no way that Games Workshop are just going to be like, right, we're turning our back on everything that Forge World has done and has been doing. Like, but like, to be honest with you, I think the resin is a massive problem. I think the resin is a big issue, and I think that it's like Games Workshop don't want to have to use it, but it's there. And obviously now people can, like, you know, if I do 3D printing, I deal with resin all the time. It's a fucking pain in the ass. It's a pain in the dick to use. It's a pain in the dick to have around. Like, the whole thing about it is just like, it's no good, you know, and like, and it's no good to use. It's a second-rate material to plastic. Like, you know, it's if Games Workshop could find a way of doing the Forge World stuff in plastic and find space for it in their workshop, and the space for all the plastic injection and everything, because I can imagine resin casting probably takes up smaller space, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know much about that stuff, but
we've definitely seen some of that, right? Like, not on the Titan size scale stuff, but up to big tank size. The Horus Heresy game has re-released a lot of stuff in plastic.
Deathcore Krieg.
Deathcore. Like, I think we're going to see more. The rumors are that this guard release early next year is going to be lots of plastic Krieg. So maybe you're right, Steady. Maybe that's what we're going to see. They will just keep the resin to the big blocky heavy stuff.
I think anything
they just plan to use this new factory to slowly release plastic versions of everything.
I think anything that they can get away with not releasing in resin, they will. You know, I mean, maybe going into the 3D printing era, they'll just send you like a USB stick with an STL on and a little baggie full of resin that you can just pour into your printer.
No instructions.
But I have wondered whether they could go down a 3D printed resin route. I agree completely. I think from a business point of view, probably for the last decade, people within Games Workshop have probably been saying like, this is just such a terrible material. We have problems with this. People in some quarters, we have a bad reputation. Like we're returning stuff. There's stuff that's, we don't bag everything up right. It's just a nightmare. But because it has that niche, it's like, they must, and the deathcore, they know they're going to sell those models. They've sold that Kill Team. It makes so much sense for them just to most of the deathcore of Krieg range sort of vanished over time anyway. You couldn't get the whole range, so it makes so much sense for them just to turn it into plastic. And there must be, maybe they are developing better ways to have cheaper machining of the injection machining tools. I don't know, or because if you're mass producing something, then plastic is the way to go.
I mean, that's the thing, right? It costs a lot to make the mold for the plastic, which is fine if you're going to sell 10,000 copies, but if you're only going to sell 1,000, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but I mean, I mean, there must be reasons why they're using resin over plastic in areas. But
I don't think I would care if I bought a Forge World kit and it was 3D printed resin.
No.
But I mean, I can't imagine that's a very cost-effective way of producing stuff as well.
Really,
probably in terms of like what Games Workshop
intensive.
want to do, and it takes hours. Like printing stuff takes hours. In terms of like that's like get them out the door. But it's like 4 hours, even like with a really high-end printer, it would take you like 4 hours kind of thing to print like a like a sort of infantry size model. Yeah.
I think we'll see it around for a while more, but I think they will lean away from these big, expensive, exaggerated models, and they will focus much more on smaller run, detailed games with a smaller following. We're going to see more of these kind of independent games, maybe even Battlefleet Gothic.
In some ways we've been praising Kill Team, but in some ways that fulfills some of this itch of like seeing, like, if I was just getting back into Games Workshop now, I'd be like, okay, cool, this is the range, I like this is cool, I'm getting a bit bored of this. Oh shit, Kill Team, fulfilling the areas of the lore. Totally. Smaller, like, slightly more expensive box, because I think that's just got a price increase as well, actually, which we didn't talk about in the news. But so that's getting a bit bumped up in terms of pricing, and it's like, so that's again just like
what's getting a bump up?
The Kill Team boxes.
Oh.
Yeah,
they're just coming up with a price increase on one product line.
It's just as soon as the Kill Team you like has come out, Matt, so they're going to bump up the price.
It's for the it's a new edition, Matt. So they've redone the rules and reboxed
everything. Of course it is. Yeah.
And I think they're up to £35-38, I think, for one Kill Team, which is
crazy, really
pushing it.
Yeah. You're right about the Kill Team filling that niche, because I know I've seen a lot of people take that Deathcore of Krieg Kill Team and make it into an entire army. Because as soon as you've got, even though there's 10 plastic men, but they've got lots of different arm combinations. You combine that with the other.
We've gone full circle, haven't we? Because I mean, that's what, like, can you, like, when the original, I remember listening to an old podcast. It was used to be called Independent Characters. It was fucking amazing. It was like an old Warhammer 40k podcast. They used to go proper into depth into stuff. It was super geeky. Don't listen to it. Only listen to Large Blast podcast, obviously. But like, they had like a whole thing where they were working out, because they used to talk about like loving Forge World stuff. And they worked out that if you wanted to play, it was either the Deathcore Krieg or the Solar Auxilia.
Yeah,
they were the two most expensive unit to pound models to play in the entire range of all of 40k, or like all of it. And like,
that does not surprise me.
No, and it's just happened. All it's done, it's gone round again. So they've got rid of the old Krieg, and now if you want to field it, you've got to spend £38 a unit.
Yeah.
Plus anything you want to convert with it. Like, let's say you want to go Rough Riders and do that whole original thing. You've got to buy the Rough Riders box and a Kill Team of Krieg. And the whole thing is like, fire up the 3D printer, sack them off.
I think one thing's for sure, if you're listening to this and it inspires you to go and look at Forge World models, if you can find it, buy it. Because if there's something out there you like, I wouldn't put money on it existing anymore. I wish I'd bought that super fiddly Keeper of Secrets model.
Yeah.
But you will never find them again.
No. The only model I ever regret not buying is that big Great Unclean one.
That was great.
Yeah,
great
yeah.
model.
The me in 40k. That's who I was going to have him. But but like he's the only thing that I. But again, it's you just don't think about it at the time, do you?
I'm trying. Well, you've come up with a model each. I mean, there were some of the Deathcore of Krieg models. You mentioned the Rough Riders, so the Deathcore of Krieg cavalry was amazing. The horses with gas masks, the Quartermaster. If you're on your internet browser of choice, you need to look up the Deathcore of Krieg Quartermaster, who's pulling out his pistol to shoot dead one of the casualties on the field of battle so that his servitors can strip the man bare so that his uniform can be reused. Those are amazing. And some of the light artillery pieces, they had like thud guns. Some of the light artillery pieces for the Death Corps were the Atlas recovery tank, which is like a Lehman Russ conversion kit that turned it. Yeah, that is on the back. That thing, like that goes for hundreds of pounds on eBay. It's like one of the rarest Forge World things you can get your hands on.
Well,
I would have bought two and sold one,
I mean, let's not forget as well. We've hardly really talked about them, but the Titans. I mean, they were just like they're just. We don't know a whole lot about the different kinds of Titans or whatever, but just the fact that they existed and that some lunatic was like, I'm going to make a bunch of Titans and flog them to some fucking nerds was just, an amazing thing, really.
And that they managed to do it with the obscure stuff as well, like the big spindly Eldar one's amazing.
I love the Eldar one.
So good.
The Serap Tech, creepy crawly Necron thing.
And there's
that one's huge.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Didn't they have like it was like a monolith thing, like a big Necron?
It was like a gyroscope type.
Yeah.
It's on legs. Yeah.
They had some really cool stuff.
If only there was a good website you could go and filter for all the Forge World.
Yeah. But one of the things that I sort of thought about all of this as well is that like a lot of the things that we talked about, like the original before Forge World, obviously there was fan-made stuff making this big things, like the Imperial Armor books came around from a fan making rules for this stuff. And I feel like, that's kind of like, I talked to James Swallows and he was saying he basically got the ad there by like applying to like a crappy ad. He got the job there, like making lore for Games Workshop by basically applying to a job in the back of a magazine, like a comic or something, wasn't it? And it's just like, it's kind of like, and Forge World has always kind of been the last kind of bastion of feeling like that in a way, like you're ordering from some guy's shed, you're getting this stuff, so like I really hope that like it doesn't lose that going forwards. And like the plastic kits are lovely and everything, but there's still always a part of me that will want to receive a bag of complete shite with just a piece of paper in it that basically just says, fuck you, you work out what to do with this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
G'day, this is the old ambassador for Australian Internet at my new job, collecting customer feedback information for Forge World. On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy were you with your recent Forge World experience? Thank you very much. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how offensive did you find my Australian accent? Crikey, the Australian police are here. I've been arrested for crimes against Australia. They're putting me in a kangaroo's pouch, a police kangaroo. It's got a tyrant on its head.
So that brings us on to the last part of the show, the Lords of Lore quiz. And this time it's a Forge World quiz. I'll tell you what, like, there's not, I couldn't find a whole lot of stuff about all different kinds of cool questions. So some of it's you might find some of it's a little bit mixed up, like in terms of like how much it falls into the Forge World category. But let's get things kicked off. So the first part of this quiz is going to be, I'm going to say some names of stuff, and I want you to stop me when you think one of them is a Forge World. Okay? Porkies, Cyclonus 5, Dr. Franks, Gantz.
That's a Forge World.
Oh, Matt, that's a point for you. That is a Forge World.
This is very biased towards the AdMech player here.
Makeout Cove, Glasgow 4, Funky Town, Jumanji, Lucius.
That's
Lucius is one.
Oh, we got one. I think I'll give that to both of you. Fuck it, you both get a point for that. Okay. Hellgate, Helldoor, Hellguard, Hellgrace, Flip-Flop, Connor, Bumcrease. Well, you missed two there. You could have had Hellgrace or Connor. They were both Forge Worlds as well. Yeah, apparently so.
Not Bumcrease.
Not Bumcrease. No, that was not a Forge World. You saw through my Forge World lies there. Okay.
I'm imagining how you dock.
Permission to enter Bumcrease. What is World Forge? Is it A, a thing in World of Warcraft? Is it B, a film starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? Is it C, a Russian video games developer? Or is it D, some Voltan bullshit to keep this question a little bit Warhammer 40k?
I think it's D.
I think it's A.
You're both wrong. It was C, a Russian video games developer. Okay, so next question. Name 3 things that Vashtor is creating in the Forge of Souls.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, he'll be making a Chaos Titan, I imagine.
All right, I'll give you that, yeah. That's
And probably
a little later.
Oh.
What about like Chaos Dreadnoughts?
Say Hellbrute and Soul Grinder.
Yeah. Soul Grinder.
Yes, Matt, that's
right. On Lords of Law.
You made it. Okay, cool. So that brings us on to this, the last question to do with forges and Forge Worlds. What would you expect to purchase from World of Forges? Is it A, some Uranium crystals from a Star Wars guy? Is it B, some counterfeit goods from an anime guy? Is it C, some runes from a Viking? Or is it D, a Vidor propane double burning mini furnace, portable and designed for mobile ferrying units, purchased from Glenn Borland?
I didn't hear half the questions because my internet's cutting out.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go B.
Oh, well, I'll say D then.
Well done, Matt. Cross the board. All clean sweep. 1 billion quadrillion points is heading its way over to you right now. Say goodbye, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This has been Large Blast Podcast, all the way continentally, globally, from around the world, in your local area. We'll be back at some point. Bear with us.
I snort resin dust.
I'll go look at the Forge World website. Oh, wait, I can't.